Hi, my name is Brian. I'm a student of astrology and aspiring teacher of astrology. And this is my first video here on my channel, Astro Perennial, that's addressing current event topics. And I was inspired to make this video based on some events this morning. I was waiting for the Supreme Court rulings to come out. Today is Wednesday, the 29th of June, 2022. And while I was waiting, I came across the interesting Twitter thread, I guess, on a potential case that possibly looks like now it may be addressed in the session tomorrow, which would be Thursday, June 30th. But I'm going to share my screen now and go over that Twitter post that I found very intriguing, considering everything that's been happening. And I want to try to tie that into some of the astrological cycles and events that have been happening, I guess even over the last 20 years or so. Okay, so share my screen. Okay, it says I'm screen sharing. I'll test this out. If it doesn't work, I will find out later. Okay, so this is from Jay, who's at NYCJJ on Twitter. This person says, not to freak anyone out, but there are still cases to come, including one that could shake the power of the federal government to its core. It's called West Virginia versus EPA. And the most extreme ruling would declare that Congress lacks the power to delegate authority to federal agencies to implement policy. So he goes on to say, under existing law, Congress may delegate its regulatory power to an administrative agency, but it must provide an intelligible principle or a standard by which the agency must exercise its quasi-legislative powers. Agencies have traditionally met this standard with ease, but recently conservative courts have resurrected the non-delegation doctrine to strike down acts by agencies that would easily have passed muster before. If applied in a draconian manner, the non-delegation doctrine could end the federal government as we know it. So it's a pretty dramatic statement, but I think it's accurate if this comes to pass. It says if the court actually went so far. As Justin Kagan said in a case in 2019, if the defendant's delegation is unconstitutional, then most of government is unconstitutional. Kagan was writing for the plurality of four liberals, joined by Justice Alito, in a concurrence that has always bothered me. And that concurrence said, if a majority of this court were willing to reconsider the approach we have taken for the past 84 years, I would support that effort. He wrote, teasing the idea of non-delegation to his fellow conservatives. But because a majority is not willing to do that, it would be freakish to single out the provision at issue here for special treatment. Now, as we all know since then, most people know that two more conservatives, Kavanaugh and Barrett, were added to the court. Where they stand is unclear. Prior to these two recent extremist decisions, in his opinion, on gun regulation and abortion, I would not have bet the SCOTUS would dare a seismic shakeup between the other branches of government using the non-delegation doctrine. But it's certainly unusual that it released Dobbs first. Momentous decisions usually get announced last in the typical SCOTUS calendar. That's why I'm a bit nervous. What is the court planning with the EPA decision end? So this non-delegation doctrine, as I'm perceiving it here, would say that most of the agencies that Congress has created to do many functions could be declared unconstitutional. I mean, it would shrink the size of federal government, greatly, I guess. And so many things are done by agencies. So some people have called it the fourth part of government, besides the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. So this would be monumental and really change how our government, especially federal government, would even look like. So given that, I was not aware that this is even a possibility. It's pretty interesting, considering some of the transits that we have, the fact that we have a Pluto return for the United States chart, which is coming back into play again. It was pretty exact, I think, back in February, and now it's very exact again. And then we've had all the different Pluto and Capricorn cycles that have been happening. And basically, those are all, I'm going to bring up a chart here of the United States of America, what they would call birth chart, I guess. This is the most standard used one. There's some debate as far as what the exact time of the birth of the United States would be as a country, but most people would think it's July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia. 5:10 p.m. is the time that an astrologer called Sibley, way back when, had come up with this time as the most likely. So this is what's called the Sibley chart, and it shows here the sun on July 4th is at 13 degrees Cancer. So that's where we are celebrating our 4th of July coming up again. Pluto at that time in 1776 was at 27 degrees Capricorn. And in our solar system, Pluto is the slowest moving planet. It has a cycle of roughly 250 years as it traverses the zodiac, goes around all the different signs that we see here on the outside of the wheel, and it gets back to the same place where it is before, which it has done since 1776. So if I add what's called a transit chart outside of this wheel, I will show you that. Well, this is a chart for tomorrow, for the time that the rulings are expected to come out. I believe it's 10 a.m. Eastern time in Washington, but that's close enough. I believe that's the correct time. But Pluto has been coming towards matching up with the 27-degree Capricorn degree where it existed in the birth chart of the USA. And like I said, it became exact somewhere around February. It went past it. There's a principle in astrology where it kind of goes back and forth. But it is applying, which is a stronger aspect again right now. And you can see 27:48, 27:33 minutes, very close to exact. So that's what's called the Pluto return. Pluto went around the entire zodiac, 250 years roughly, and is at the same place it was before. The principle of Pluto, one of the main meanings assigned to it is a destructive force. It's associated with death, and deaths are also associated with rebirth. So in Capricorn is associated with structures. So many astrologers have been, since 2008, when Pluto was up here at 0 degrees. Capricorn, it first came into that sign. The economic problems started happening then, and also kind of a transformation or destruction also of many of our structures and organizations that we have that rule our society, I guess. So that's been happening for a long time, since 2008. It's really come to the head here. This is particular to the United States. The other Capricorn, Pluto and Capricorn would apply to anybody in the world, but this Pluto return is specific to the United States. Also, we had a astrological phenomenon where Saturn, which is the ruler of Capricorn, also greatly involved with hierarchies, the status quo structures. That planet was conjunct, or came together with, at the same degree, I think it was like 22 degrees. So when Saturn was at 22 degrees here, Pluto also was at 22 degrees there. That was January of 2020, when many of our great changes have begun. So anyways, Saturn and Pluto coming together starts a new cycle, what they call a synodic cycle, and that's a 35-year cycle. So some of the same themes of Pluto and Saturn and Capricorn, and the kind of the destruction and rebirth of the potentially of the status quo, have been, on multiple fronts have been occurring. So that fits in with that possibility of the federal government really being transformed, and how it might function and be set up with this ruling, if that would be the type of ruling. Obviously not guaranteed that was considered an extreme event, but I think it's definitely supported by some of the astrological themes that have been going on. The other themes that supported are the number of cycles that are Aquarian in nature. Aquarius is the sign that occurs after Capricorn. So Capricorn, if we picture it as kind of more the top-down authority, like a pyramid, where lots of our corporation, governments, other organizations are all organized that way. Each zodiacal sign is much different as we progress around the zodiac. They have an entirely different makeup of their core components. They're a different element. They're a different, what they call modality, and they're a different polarity. So in this kind of divine structure of the zodiac, as things happen, it's set up that there is change on all three fronts of how a sign is comprised every time a planet would traverse from one sign to another. It enters completely different territory. So I will be doing a series of videos on kind of the architecture of the zodiac. That's one of the things I want to do on my channel, and also the architecture of a birth chart, what all these symbols mean. I know a lot of people aren't into the details, but you can certainly understand, as I'm speaking about it, the themes and the principles behind some of these planetary events, signs, planets, as they have kind of an environment and impact and events that then can happen that are, I guess, resonate with their meanings. So getting back to Aquarius, Aquarius is a much more individualistic sign. Freedom, individual freedom is highlighted. It's a very decentralized type of principle versus the centralized Capricorn governments and organizations and institutions. So when we're looking at Aquarius, it makes thematic sense that a ruling that would shrink the federal government and give more power, you know, to the legislative branch or to the states would make sense, because you have a destruction of the existing status quo occurring. Now that may be some of these cycles are over, like I said, 35 years, 250 years. There also was an important Aquarian cycle that happened when Saturn and Jupiter made a conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. Many people were speculating that this is kind of a kickoff to the Aquarian age. It's a 20-year cycle. There's another 200-year cycle by element for Saturn and Jupiter that also has kicked off. So I'll go into detail on that in future videos. But basically, there's again a repeating a theme of a strength of Aquarius. You know, and the longest cycle that people, you know, commonly know of is what's called the Age of Aquarius, and that's based on the astrological phenomenon where there's called the precession of the equinox, and that cycle switches from one sign to another, goes backwards through the zodiac, but from Pisces to Aquarius, that's a 2,600 year cycle that astrologers have been debating, you know, exactly when, you know, when is that phased in. But in the 1960s, obviously, the Age of Aquarius became a, you know, more of a common, you know, buzzword or whatever. I mean, it's an event, an astrological event, and we have that changing of the ages through the precession of the equinoxes. But that's another Aquarian theme. So everything is shifting. It's towards potentially this decentralized way of operating versus a top-down pyramid centralized system. So a lot of astrological support for that. I mean, we saw that in the earlier ruling last week, which put more decision, well, all the decision-making power, it appears to me, you know, at a state level for that controversial topic. So I think that's about it for now. I thank you for listening to me. If you'd like to subscribe, share, I appreciate it. I'm just doing this for fun. I find astrology fascinating, and I like to study it and learn about it and share it. So thanks again. I'll see you next time.